This deep dive is, it's really difficult to start. The attack on that Christmas market in Magdeburg, Germany, it's just horrifying. I mean, a place for, holiday cheer turned into a scene of tragedy.
Yeah, it's devastating. And, unfortunately, this incident has disturbing echoes of past attacks in Germany.
Yeah, you're right. So for you listening, here's what we know so far. A 50-year-old doctor drove a vehicle into that crowded Christmas market, injured dozens of people, and tragically, there are at least 2 fatalities, including a child.
The details are just chilling. The driver, he plowed through the market for almost 400 meters before authorities stopped him. The scale of the attack and, its seemingly random nature, it's just heartbreaking.
It's really disturbing that this doctor, who immigrated from Saudi Arabia to Germany in 2006, is believed to have acted alone.
Right.
This brings up so many questions about what could motivate someone to do this and how to prevent these, these lone wolf attacks.
It's incredibly complex, and it's hard not to see parallels with the 2016 Berlin Christmas market attack.
Oh.
A truck was deliberately driven into that market, causing multiple casualties. That incident was deemed a terrorist attack carried out by Anas Amri, who had pledged allegiance to ISIS.
The German interior minister had actually warned people to be vigilant at Christmas markets this year, even without specific threats. It just underscores the unease and the real dangers we face.
It certainly highlights the challenges for, security forces worldwide. Even with increased awareness and security measures, these open public spaces just remain vulnerable.
And, just days before this tragedy in Magdeburg, there was another incident, this one thankfully thwarted, in Augsburg, Bavaria. You were telling me about this.
Yes, a suspected ISIS sympathizer was arrested in Augsburg for plotting an attack on their Christmas market. Though thankfully prevented, it points to a larger and deeply troubling trend.
What kind of trend?
A rise in what we call lone wolf attacks. These are individuals, often radicalized online, who act independently, without direct ties to organized terrorist groups. This makes these attacks incredibly difficult to detect and prevent. To understand lone wolf attacks, it's helpful to understand the term radicalization.
Okay.
It's a process where individuals adopt extreme political, social, or religious beliefs.
Right.
And, beliefs that can lead to violence.
Right.
The internet, unfortunately, has become a breeding ground for this, as extremist groups use online platforms for spreading their ideology and recruiting new members.
So even with, heightened security in Christmas markets,
Right.
This rise in lone wolf attacks makes them soft targets.
Well, it's not just about Christmas markets.
Right.
It's about the vulnerability of any large gathering, any symbol of normalcy that can be disrupted, to sow fear and chaos. And sadly, since the 2016 attack in Berlin, security at these events has had to evolve dramatically.
What kind of changes have been implemented?
Many Christmas markets now have visible security measures, like concrete barriers to prevent vehicle attacks,
Oh, okay.
bag checks, and increased police presence. But there's also a lot happening behind the scenes.
You mean like surveillance technology?
Exactly. Some cities are using facial recognition software to identify potential threats in real time, and AI-powered crowd monitoring systems to detect unusual patterns or behaviors. That could indicate an imminent attack.
It's fascinating and kind of unsettling to think about all that is happening in the background.
Sure.
But it still feels like there's no way to guarantee 100% safety.
You're right. There's no foolproof way to eliminate risk entirely.
Right.
This is where the concept of shared responsibility comes in.
Okay.
While authorities are doing what they can, we as individuals also have a role to play.
So what can we do? I mean, aside from avoiding crowded places altogether, which isn't really a sustainable solution.
It starts with awareness. Pay attention to your surroundings. If something seems off or out of place, trust your instincts. Report any suspicious activity to the authorities. Don't assume someone else will do it.
That makes sense. But how do we know what to look for? What constitutes suspicious activity?
It can be tricky. But generally, things like unattended bags or packages, individuals behaving erratically or nervously, or anyone showing an unusual interest in security measures or restricted areas should raise a red flag.
Okay, so being observant is key. But what if something actually does happen? What should we do in an emergency situation like an attack?
That's when having a plan can be crucial. Before you head out to any crowded event, talk to your family or friends about what you would do in case of an emergency.
Like having a designated meeting point if you get separated.
Exactly. Also, familiarize yourself with the layout of the place. Know where the exits are and think about what you would do in different scenarios. Would you run, hide, or fight? There's no single right answer, but having thought it through beforehand can save precious seconds in a real crisis.
Yeah, thinking about all this is pretty sobering, but I guess knowledge is power in situations like this.
It really is.
Yeah.
And the more informed we are about the threats and potential responses, the better equipped we are to stay safe and make informed decisions.
This conversation has made me realize that we can't just rely on, authorities to keep us safe. It's a collective responsibility.
Absolutely. We all have a role to play in creating a safer society. Reporting suspicious activity, being prepared for emergencies, and fostering a sense of community vigilance. These are all small but important steps we can take.
I keep thinking back to the suspect in the Magdeburg attack. A doctor. It's hard to grasp how someone in a profession dedicated to healing could commit such a horrific act.
It's a stark reminder that radicalization can affect anyone, regardless of background or profession, and it underscores the need to understand the factors that contribute to it.
So what causes someone to become radicalized?
It's rarely a single cause.
Right.
It's often a complex interplay of factors, things like social isolation, economic hardship, political disillusionment, and exposure to extremist propaganda, particularly online, can create fertile ground for radicalization.
It's almost like a perfect storm of personal vulnerabilities and external influences.
That's a good way to put it. Individuals who feel alienated, disenfranchised, or lacking purpose are especially vulnerable to extremist messages that offer a sense of belonging, identity, and meaning, even if twisted.
This is a lot to process, but I appreciate you breaking it down in a way that feels both informative and empowering.
It's a complex topic, and it's important to have these conversations, even if they're difficult, because only by understanding the challenges can we start to find solutions.
Wow, it feels like we've covered so much in this deep dive. It's heavy stuff, but it's also incredibly important.
Yeah, it is. These attacks, particularly on places like Christmas markets, they strike at the heart of what we hold dear. Our sense of community, our traditions, our moments of joy.
And the fact that this Magdeburg attack, like the Berlin attack before it, has, garnered international attention. It speaks to the broader impact. It's not just a German problem. It feels like a global one.
You're right. These events send ripples of fear and uncertainty far beyond the immediate location. And it underscores the need for, international cooperation in combating terrorism.
But what does that cooperation look like?
Well, it's multifaceted. It includes intelligence sharing between countries to track, potential threats, collaborative efforts to disrupt terrorist financing networks, and working together to counter extremist propaganda, especially online.
It sounds like a massive undertaking.
It is, but it's essential. We're all interconnected in this digital age, and the challenges of terrorism just transcend national borders.
So much of our conversation is focused on, prevention and security measures. But what about the victims of these attacks? Their families, the communities left to grapple with the aftermath.
That's a crucial aspect that we can't overlook. Providing support for victims, both in the immediate aftermath and the long term, is essential. This includes, medical care, psychological counseling, and helping them navigate the legal and financial complexities that often arise after such tragedies.
It's heartbreaking to think about the trauma and the long road to recovery for those affected.
Absolutely. And it's also important to remember that, entire communities are impacted by these events. The fear, the grief, the disruption to daily life, these can have long-lasting consequences.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the one thing you want our listener to take away from all of this?
It's a complex and challenging topic, but I think the key takeaway is this. We need to stay informed, engaged, and resilient. Don't let fear paralyze you. Take steps to prepare yourself and your loved ones, but also remember that the best defense against extremism, against the forces that seek to divide us, is to build strong communities, foster understanding, and hold on to hope for a more peaceful and just world.
Those are powerful words to end on. A reminder that even in the face of darkness, we have the power to choose hope, connection, and action. Thank you for this insightful and thought-provoking conversation.